a student from Arlington who helped ignite a movement, a 12-year-old who stepped onto a professional baseball field, a prosecutor who made history in his own hometown, and an historian determined to make sure local stories are not erased. These are the moments and the people behind the stories that shape us.
Black History Month is often about looking back, remembering names we've learned in school.
But history is not just about what happened in Washington or in Atlanta or on the pages of a textbook.
It happens right here in places like Arlington, Albany, Tifton, and Douglas.
Well, tonight we are highlighting stories of Southwest Georgians who have helped to shape our community.
One of these stories began in a town with fewer than 2,000 people, a young man who helped ignite a student movement across the South.
Mariah Norman introduces us to the legacy of Lonnie C. King.
Libraries are the places filled with stories worth telling. And as we continue celebrating Black History Month, one of those stories hits especially close to home. Lonnie C. King Jr. is a native of right here in Southwest Georgia. He inspired students in the South with the words and the courage to demand change. And today, his legacy is returning to the community where it all began. Lonnie King was a boy from Arlington, Georgia, a population of less than 2,000, but his words reached millions.
He made history, always fighting in a nonviolent way for civil rights, for the people of not just Atlanta, but Georgia and all over.
He went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, joined the Navy to pay for it, but served a country that didn't treat him like the officer he'd become.
Serving your country, coming back home, and unlike other officers who were not African American, you received a different treatment. You were still considered second class.
Many believe that's what spurred his fight for social justice. At Morehouse, Lonnie King founded the Atlanta Student Movement and helped organize SNCC. He even convinced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to join protests in Atlanta, where both were arrested. Then he co-wrote the Appeal for Human Rights in 1960. Students across the South read it, sat down at lunch counters protesting, and stood up for change. His legacy temporarily lives at the Northwest Library in Albany through a traveling exhibit. The local library's mission to tell his story.
How else can we know our path forward if we don't know what's come before us?
This exhibit shows photographs, personal papers, and Lonnie King's words that sparked a movement. Many local residents there to honor him.
I was born in 1956, so as a child I do remember Albany and the civil rights movement in downtown Albany. Younger generations growing up need to know the importance of what happened and why it happened, and we've got to keep it going.
How else can we know our path forward if we don't know what comes before us? Powerful words there. Educators like Courtney J. Smith says the best way to know what came before us isn't just through textbooks, but by remembering that Black history lives in our hearts. Across South Georgia, there are people doing just that, working to make sure local stories are not lost over time. One educator from Tifton says that mission became clear after she discovered just how much history had been left out. Dr. Courtney J. Smith teaches at Clark Atlanta University, but her roots remain here in South Georgia in Tifton. Nearly a decade ago, she founded Spark It Incorporated, and now she's restoring her grandparents' home near J.T. Reddick Elementary School to reconnect younger generations with their history. That work took on new urgency during a visit to the Georgia Archives. Smith says that moment pushed her deeper into researching property records, family histories, and community contributions, uncovering stories she believes deserve far more attention.
What I found is that when I went to get Tift County's digest, because I can go into a research room, take pictures, they were still in plastic. My mission, before I close my eyes, I'm going to make sure that our stories are told.
500 pages of Tift County history, only 6 mention the African American community. Smith says every story she uncovers helps connect generations and reminds the community that history isn't just national, it's local.
Well, history doesn't just live in archives, it lives in people, in the decisions they make and the standards they set. For Dougherty County District Attorney Greg Edwards, that responsibility has defined more than 40 years of service. Edwards began his career as an assistant district attorney, rising to chief assistant before being elected to lead the office. Over the years, he's earned statewide recognition, becoming the first person in Georgia to be named both Assistant District Attorney of the Year and District Attorney of the Year.
So it meant nothing at all, and it meant everything. And that's how I approached being the first African American to make sure that everyone who comes to this court knows that they will not be in any way treated unfairly by reason of race, creed, color, age, sex, or any other disparity in terms of being different from the rest of the society.
He says the title of first carried responsibility, but fairness has always been his focus. Edwards credits his values to the influence of two Albany leaders.
I think it's so important for the younger generation to know and to see examples of this the first.
That is right, and it's also important to know it doesn't matter where you come from.
Just for him to be able to pass that down to me as my transition from boy to man, as you would say, is definitely special to me. It's going to be a moment I'm looking forward to, and I'm going to keep in my heart forever.
A local tradition that's been shaping young men in Albany for decades is preparing for its next milestone. Tonight, how the Botillion Club is helping the next generation step into manhood.
Stories That Shape Us, sponsored by Albany State University.
Some stories don't just shape a season, they shape history. In 1952 in Fitzgerald, Georgia, a 12-year-old walked onto a professional baseball field. Joe Relaford became the youngest player ever to appear in a professional game. But this wasn't just about age. Relaford became one of the first African-American players to officially compete alongside white professionals. Even during the Jim Crow era, his team embraced him. Today, his story is preserved in Cooperstown, recognized not just for the game he played, but for the door that he helped open. James Irvin takes us back to the moment Joe Relaford stepped up to the plate.
I mean, he's always been outgoing. You know, he's played all kinds of sports, you know, in junior, high school, college, you know. He's always been the outgoing one. So I couldn't imagine how he felt, the nerves that he felt, even trying to play as a 12-year-old.
The way the story goes is that Relaford was a bat boy for the Fitzgerald Pioneers, and in a game against the Statesboro Pirates, the Pioneers started losing 13-0. That's when the crowd started chanting to put in the bat boy, and sure enough, manager for Fitzgerald, Charlie Ridgway, did. Relaford's wife, Gwendolyn, says that despite the time period, the team embraced him.
One thing, it's good to know you got good people, I don't care who you are. And then he was never mistreated. And being the youngest and only black, it makes me feel good. Back in that day, that's before Jackie Robinson became famous, to know that in spite of what we hear about the races, you still had people who were human and they took care of them.
While Relaford may not have recorded a hit in his lone plate appearance, he did record an out in right field, making him not only the youngest player to ever play in a professional game, but the first African-American player to officially play with whites in the state of Georgia. His daughter says it means a great deal to know the impact her father made.
I am so proud to know that my father made history. It's great to know that he has a legacy, and we're going to make sure, you know, that we keep it going. That's empowering. That's really exciting to know that it can't ever be broken.
Coach Dallas Smith is forever inked in the Westover record books, but this story is about much more than wins and losses. It's about a young man who returned home to build something bigger than himself. Our Morgan Jackson has his story.
Tonight, we crown a new dean of basketball in the Dougherty County school system.
Dallas Smith is the winningest basketball coach in Westover high school history, surpassing Coach Willie Boston, the man he describes as his father figure. But this achievement didn't happen by accident. It's the culmination of a life shaped by resilience, mentorship, and an unwavering commitment to giving back. Smith was born and raised on the south side of Albany, 13 people in a one-bedroom apartment filled with golden tornadoes.
Didn't know what Westover was at. I never went to the mall. And I think my 9th grade year, I remember going to the mall once, and Mom pointed over and said, "There go Westover." I was like, wow.
Westover seemed like a world away until Coach Willie Boston changed everything. After a conversation with Smith's mother, there was no doubt that he and his twin brother Dennis would be the first in their family to attend Westover. Little did Smith know that becoming a Patriot would change the trajectory of his life forever.
Coach Willie Boston. If it wasn't for him, there would not be a Coach Dallas Smith.
Many know Coach Smith for his work on the hardwood, but his early days at Westover were all about football, leading the Patriots to their first and only back-to-back region titles.
Well, we changed the culture.
A little under 6 feet tall, Smith garnered the attention of colleges, ultimately deciding to stay down south. After setting multiple records for Valdosta State, the next step was the league.
That's Dallas Smith.
A little Georgia boy going somewhere that's different. Matter of fact, first time being on a plane.
The Seattle Seahawks came calling, and Smith's dreams of playing in the NFL came true. But there's no place like home.
I wanted to help my mom, so that's the reason I came back to Albany. Then I got a chance to start coaching with Coach B, and everything else is history.
Coach Willie Boston, you talk about the impact you have in your life. To surpass him in wins. Well, how does that make you feel?
Not a me, all about trying to advance the kids and raise them to be young men, to be productive in today's society. And so I kind of stepped back the other day and I looked at it like, wow, I did some things right.
Growing up, Smith said they didn't have much, but his mom always made sure they had what mattered most: love, family, and God.
Matter of fact, I'm about to tear up just thinking about it. Just the other day, I was thinking how proud she would be of me today.
In a modest apartment on the south side of Albany, a mother's sacrifices planted seeds that would grow into more than 500 wins, countless young men shaped into leaders, and a legacy that will inspire generations of Patriots to come.
According to fifth-generation farmer Clinton Vicks, 70 to 80% of his former students in Dougherty County tested as compatible with farming or agricultural professions. As a child, he never dreamed that his daily bus route would send him down the same path. Jamie Worsley takes us to the Vicks estate in Putney, where food, agriculture, and Black history merge to create an experience for people from all across the country.
Come down this road and see, to me as a 6-year-old, a huge home in this huge yard. And I would say if I lived in Albany, that's the house I wanted to live in. I say that to say that I know that me getting the house, the work I did on it, was all divinely led. This wasn't a career path I ever thought of being on. I was raised by grandparents who farmed the land, so I had done it as a child, but I had been living in New York and DC for 18 years, so I was real metropolitan in the city, urban. Having started the Vicks Estate Farm and Fishery put a business to something that we have been doing for a long time. There are generational farmers, especially in the Black community, that don't realize that they are business owners, and so they haven't been trained to properly run their farm as a business. So one of the things we do here is my whole workshops for farmers. Additionally, I bring other farmers here so we can do experiments. So at the rear of my property is an old fishing pond that we're currently restoring, and we want to include aquaponics and teach local farmers how to use that as a growing source as well. One of the major projects I was instrumental in participating in as a grower and farmer was the Black Agritourism Trail sponsored by Airbnb. That allowed individuals from around the country to come and stay or visit farms and learn about the history of Black farmers in this country. I kind of feel obligated to my ancestors to let them see what is the manifestation of their dream, and this is it. Owning my own land, owning the food that I produce, making a living off of it, teaching others, so that you're inspired to know that in spite of the current struggles that you see and impediments that you know exist, if they could do it, you can do it.
Through the Vicks estate, Clinton has also helped farmers in Mitchell and Lee counties secure over $80,000 for their operations through grants.
Albany's role in the civil rights movement runs deep, but community leaders say that history goes far beyond just one chapter. We spoke with a longtime Albany historian, Frank Wilson, about the city's powerful legacy and the leaders who helped shape it. The Albany movement became one of the most significant chapters in Southwest Georgia's civil rights history. While the movement remains central to the city's identity, historians say there's even more to the story. Long before the 1960s movement, Philip Joyner, one of 33 black legislators expelled from the Georgia Assembly in 1868, lived in Albany. A monument now stands near the corner of Jackson and Highland, marking his legacy. And during the civil rights movement, that same location later became known as a gathering place, even photographed with Dr. King playing pool there.
Albanians don't always appreciate the value of the history of Albany. And what I often try to stress, there is a tremendous history of Albany that has nothing to do with the Albany movement. No doubt the Albany movement was a very key part of Albany, but there are some historic factors that you never hear about.
For longtime residents, preserving Albany's history is about more than reflection. It's about making sure the stories live on. Community leaders say continuing to tell these stories ensure Albany's legacy and its impact on America is never forgotten.
I agree. Of course, those stories need to live on.
They do. And speaking of living on, not only are these historical figures that came from Albany, maybe some of them have passed on, but many of them are still living here, like Frank Wilson and Rutha Harris. So it's important to know who those people are.
I had to learn my boundaries in that and not get angry and keep the love of God in me because of the color of my skin. Because the color of my skin don't define who I am.
For generations, black churches have helped communities navigate hardship while holding on to faith. A local pastor says that foundation helped her respond to racism.
Stories that shape us. Sponsored by Mitchell AMC.
When you talk about black history, you have to include Black Greek organizations or the Divine Nine. These organizations came about during the early 1900s, mostly on the campuses of HBCUs and eventually expanding to predominantly white institutions. Mount Zion in Albany recently brought members together for a discussion on Greek life with both graduate and undergraduate members.
I've gotten to know a lot of prominent people in the community, as well as, just people who are part of Greek letter organizations. And what I have observed is that they're very friendly. There's a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood among the fraternities and sororities. They're very service oriented. They're very, very serious about giving back to the community, mentoring young people, and developing leadership skills and character among the generations coming behind them.
Conversations and even debates on social media and in person have recently questioned the history and the significance of Black Greek organizations, even asking, are they cults?
Some people, for whatever reason, come to that conclusion that we worship the ivy leaf or the apes or elephants and all this other stuff, which is absolutely false. Most of our organizations, particularly in our ritualistic, have scriptures enveloped within our rituals out of the King James Bible. And so we're not some cult organization.
You look in the Old Testament and the New Testament, it was always about helping people. If you move on to the New Testament, we're talking about loving thy neighbor and bearing each other's burdens. So is every organization about? Scholarship, sister or brotherhood, and service. Who are we serving? Those who are in need. So to me, my personal opinion is that Greek letter organization is really just a vehicle that can do God's work.
One theme resonated over and over again: community service and giving back.
Community service is a big part of our fraternity. In fact, it's a part of our national program. We do that in an effort to make sure that we are instilling in our young men, especially the undergrad, the importance of not just being a part of a organization, but there are some aspects of it that we give back to the community.
During Thanksgiving, we do Thanksgiving baskets for a needy family. We do clothing drive. We do school supplies drive. These shoes, if you name it, we try to incorporate it into something positive to do.
The rich history, service, and excellence of the Divine Nine include public figures on the local, state, and national, as well as international stages, such as the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Reverend Jesse Jackson, John Lewis, Maya Angelou, Kamala Harris, Cheryl Underwood, Dorothy Height, and so many others.
Across South Georgia, Black churches have long stood as pillars of faith, resilience, and leadership. For generations, they've served not only as places of worship, but as spaces where voices were strengthened and movements were born. Tonight, Taylor Lewis introduces us to one local pastor reflecting on that powerful legacy and her own journey continuing it.
Many of the nation's most influential speakers first found their platform between church walls, and that same message of faith and progress has echoed right here in South Georgia through local congregations. In the late 1700s, after enslaved Africans were forced into segregated spaces, Black believers began forming their own congregations, churches that became centers of faith and freedom. From slavery to Jim Crow to the Civil Rights Movement, those churches served as places of hope. They certainly influenced Pastor Barbara Bradshaw.
But I'm grateful for that because it gave me hope. It gave me the root. You know, everything has to start from a root. So that root is growing up in me now.
That route carried her through challenges, including discrimination she says she faced because of her skin color.
I had to learn my boundaries in that and not get angry and keep the love of God in me because of the color of my skin. Because the color of my skin don't define who I am, nor it defines where I'm going.
Like many Black churches throughout history, the mission has always been bigger than one person, as churches serve as a gathering place where courage and voices are found.
You know, just to be who I am, who I was called to be. I am somebody, you are somebody, and we deserve to be treated as equal.
She draws inspiration from biblical women who stood boldly in uncertain times, much like Black faith leaders throughout American history.
Deborah, Abigail, and Esther. They had to stand for the people. And even in injustice, going to war. Deborah had to go to war. Barak wasn't going without Deborah. So it's just so to know that I can be just as strong, even more.
From the days of slavery to modern movements for equality, she says the message remains the same.
And every human being ought to be created equal. And that's the voice he gives us. That listen, I don't care what color, creed you are. You're human, and you're supposed to be treated with dignity and love.
And she says remembering that history is essential.
And as a Black community as well, let us know where we come from. The struggle, the injustice, that we never forget. The struggle and injustice that our forefathers paid for us. He paved the way for us. Now we can stand with dignity and hope that we are overcome.
Spaces where achievement is celebrated, where mentorship is visible, where young men see and become success. One of those spaces has quietly shaped generations here in Albany, and tonight, Brittany Blake takes us inside a tradition that has done just that for more than 40 years.
We don't usually hear about the success of Black men. You know, we hear about the failures and what they were doing, this, that, and to be around Black men that all want to achieve the same goal of being a successful Black man, you know, it's enriching to your soul, you know.
To see what it is that we want to become, it becomes more tangible and real. And I think that's the most valuable part of this program, is being able to see success, being able to talk to success, being able to experience success firsthand.
The Botillion took root in the Black community in the 1940s, dismantling negative stereotypes through scholarship and social etiquette. It followed the success of the Black American debutante balls in earlier years. And since 1981, the Albany Botillion Club has provided young men unique opportunities to enhance their cultural, educational, social, and personal development. In 2004, Martez Favis was introduced to society as a man. Now, 20 years later, he mentors young men in the Albany Botillion Club.
And that was a very pivotal time in my life, particularly with me matriculating as a Black male, and the majority of my classes I was the only male and the only Black male, so it was good to have that brotherhood and to be around other young men who were excelling and who had aspirations and goals to do great things as well.
Much like a cotillion for debutantes, after completing community service and other activities over 1 year, select young men are introduced to society at the Botillion Military Gala.
It brought me to tears, really, when he was having his final rites of passage.
Mona McCoy reflects on her son's moment as a beau and the gala she co-chaired, interlacing African American culture in the traditional event.
In the final rites of passage, the young men are provided a stole and a rites of passage from their father or an elder that they look up to. Could be their coach or their pastor if their father isn't around. And that moment of watching the passing of the guard for the rites of passage is extremely powerful. And beyond that, just the relationships that my son built with the other young men in the Botillion Club has stood the test of time.
As he prepares for the 23rd Biennial Military Gala, Johnny Burroughs III is looking forward to that rite of passage from his role model, his father.
You know, just for him to be able to pass that down to me as my transition from boy to man, as you would say, is definitely special to me. It's going to be a moment I'm looking forward to, and I'm going to keep in my heart forever.
For over 40 years, the Albany Botillion has been that space where Black men celebrate their achievements, honor their heritage, and pass the torch to the next generation.
And for many families here in Albany, programs like the Botillion are more than just about a ceremony. They're about building confidence, leadership, and opportunity for the next generation.
It's a reminder that the stories we've shared tonight don't just live in history books. They live in the people, traditions, and communities that continue to shape South Georgia every day.